evening, everyone. This is the special city council. Let's put this on. This is a special city council meeting of Bel Air Beach, Monday, May 20th. Patty, would you please call? I'm sorry. We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance at this point. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Marv Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley has not arrived. Okay. Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
Finance Officer Melanie Cruzona. Attorney Jackie Spoto Bircher.
Here.
And Councilmember Robin Aki has not yet arrived.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, citizens, residents. I wanted to thank you for coming out tonight. We have a special meeting tonight, and the purpose is regarding the RFQ for our city attorney. Before we start this meeting, I am going to make this crystal clear. I am required by our code, our ordinance, and city charter to conduct meetings in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. This meeting will be so conducted. I will follow those rules strictly tonight. If you wish to speak when citizen time comes up, please wait to be acknowledged. Please come up to this podium. You may address us as a body. Do not address us individually. Do not make it personal. Do not speak in a nasty or improper manner. Because if you do, you're going to hear point of order. And if you hear point of order, please stop. Because then we're going to rule on what's going on here. Okay? After that is finished, we'll go with the council comments. And after this meeting is over, we're going to go right into our work session. But we actually have to close this meeting, start a new meeting, get to do another Pledge of Allegiance, and we will be all set to go. Okay? So with that, the first item is to authorize the city manager. Actually, this is two items. I'm not sure we're allowed to do two items, but it's the same issue. Authorize the city manager to advertise for legal issues for the city attorney. And number two, any additional comments regarding May 2nd regular city council meeting, agenda item 7. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, could I amend it?
Yes.
I'd like to amend the agenda. Sorry, what I'd like to do is talk about authorizing the city manager to go ahead with a estimate on running the lines, underground lines from Bay Shore to Gulf Boulevard with the existing underground project that's now in place. So we have a bid on that, and we've talked about it before, but this goes back a few years which you're not aware of, and what we'd like to do is, since we have extra money in the budget, is go ahead and put a direct connect for Bellevue Estates Island to Gulf Boulevard.
I asked for a second on that, but there's going to be a discussion, so if we get it. Do we have a second on the amendment only? No second, so the amendment dies. As a point of order, I don't believe we can add to a special meeting. I believe it has to be on one topic and it has to be published in advance. So I'm not positive of that. Perhaps our council can tell us, but I think it can only be limited to one item.
I don't believe that is correct. On special meetings, the legislature wants to continue to give boards and city councils leeway, so not everything has to be on an agenda. That is my understanding.
Okay. We'll check into that, but I'm sorry.
Can we check that right now? Because I think that is a point of order, is special meetings.
Well, so.
I will double check it because I know I had read recently back over this for Greg, but I will double check it for special
You
meetings.
need a brief recess?
I probably would need 5 minutes.
Okay. Does anyone on the council have a problem with a 5-minute recess? So be it. 5-minute recess is 5:04, so 5:09, 5:10. We'll get back in session. We're in recess. Meeting of May 20th, 2019. There was a question before we had recess regarding the point of order on the special meeting, whether it should or should not include any additional items. Is it possible to make an amendment, as Councilman Bem had suggested? I was correct, and I presented this to council, who did agree with me. I will quote section 2-52, special meetings, and I'm going to quote only the appropriate sentence. No other business shall be transacted at the special meeting except as stated in the notice of the special meeting. I note that the notice of the special meeting only includes the 2 items that I previously read, so as a point of order, not only did the amendment not get seconded, but we can't accept it. It can be brought up at our special session coming up with regards to the work session, and then we can take it from there for the resolution on the next council meeting.
All right, just one question I have, Mayor, since this is important, maybe we could add this into the work session, have discussion on it, so I could make a full explanation.
You can add that as an amendment at the work session, and since we have somewhat more relaxed rules, which we're going to go over in the work session, we're going to move one of the items hopefully to the first piece, but I personally don't have a problem, so we can certainly make an amendment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. But it would be non-binding, we can't vote on it. We can get a straw poll, if you will, and then understood the next resolution.
Thank you.
All right, so we're back on the regular agenda. I've already read the first 2 items, and again, I'm going to say it one more time. Authorize the city manager to advertise for legal services for the city attorney. And number 2, any additional comments regarding the May 6, 2019 regular city council meeting agenda item 7, which was the RFQ for the city attorney. At this point, I will open up to council. Do I have a motion?
So,
We have a vote and a second. It's now open for discussion. Anyone on council?
Yeah, I would like to say a couple things. I really feel like we are pushing this item through. We weren't even letting the community speak last week when they wanted to finish speaking on behalf of our attorney. I would like to see us slow this down so that we don't make a decision that is bad for the entire community, realizing the fact that the cost of the attorney is probably going to go up when we go out for bid. So I just feel like we should let the current attorney as well as his law office present their case to keep this position, since they've worked for our community for a number of years. And the comment that was made during the city council meeting about the 20-year people, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We need to respect our 20-year people and their opinion, and we need to listen to it. So I'd like to see this thing be totally just set aside until we can have more time to do more due diligence on it.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I'm making a motion.
What is your motion?
I would like to have it removed and discuss it more in a different format.
That's specific enough. Does anybody second that motion? There's no second. The amendment does not pass. Any other comments on the 2 items that were before the council?
Just to kind of go over this with everybody. We're really not looking for a new attorney at this point. We're just out there seeing what is out in the field. And again, we're trying to update most of the contracts that the city has. And since the contract was written some 20 years ago, there might be different needs. We haven't had a discussion with Mr. Marino about different needs. Just to give the new council members an update, we had a $50,000 lawyer fee for Bellevue Estates Island. So, these are things that have come up. So do we need an attorney or a law firm that has more experience to cut down some of our costs? That'll be coming up from time to time. It's hard to say, but I think we need to look at it.
Got a comment, I'd like to just address that too, because the real issue that I think you're pointing to, the people stepping up to underscore Mr. Marino's effectiveness in work ethic and history, it was just out of place because there was just a motion about an RFP and an RFQ going out there to see what's changed in the requirements and what else is out there, and it was out of place, I think. So I think that was the issue. And maybe we can discuss that during the work session, agenda protocol.
Any other council comments? If not, then the mayor has some comments. I was told after the last session by somebody, this is echoing, that this was something personal. I didn't know Mr. Marino before I became mayor, only from sitting in the audience and watching him in action in prior council meetings. I've never done professional business with him. I don't know any of the other town attorneys except by name. I've heard of them, I've heard of their reputations. I've heard of Mr. Marino and his reputation amongst the community and the greater county at large. I've been personally affected by his rulings, but that doesn't change one bit of what I'm about to say. I'm not sure whether we have a big feedback on this, but Mr. Marino's contract, to dispel some stuff that went out last time, is a month-to-month contract. Upon my request, I got a copy of that, and indeed it does, and I didn't get it till the day after our council meeting, despite the fact that it was one of the first things, along with all the copies of all the contracts that I asked of the city manager. I didn't get that, but I did get it the day after our meeting. It does, in fact, require a 30-day notice if we are going to terminate him. There is no, as Councilmember Beam has said, there is nothing on the table for termination. That would be a separate motion. So he's going to continue as our attorney until such time that something changes. He will either win a new term as attorney, or he will be replaced with someone else. It's that simple. So no one's terminating him. As a matter of housekeeping, if you will, we have to give him 30 days advance notice. So I believe when the city manager and I discussed this, August 1st would be the new start date for whomever is taking this contract over. So that would mean notice is going to go on July 31st of termination. Doesn't mean we want him out the door. He's still going to sit here, or his representative, Ms. Bircher, will be sitting on the council and advising us. And that will continue up until such time that we may have a change. Now, the city attorney said that he's never heard of such a thing last time. In fact, it made the headlines of the newspaper over here. Maybe he's not recalling Kenneth City, because I recall Kenneth City, and I spoke to some people in Kenneth City. And a new mayor came in 2009, and she was bent on changing things in that city. And in Kenneth City, it was pretty much the word that Mr. Marino's days were numbered. Now, I'm going by what someone told me. I think I've been to Kenneth City twice in my life, but I was not at these meetings, so I'm going, though, with somebody who was at those meetings. And Mr. Marino decided that he is going to retire. He told them he was going to retire, and he stepped aside. So this is not unheard of. This happened to Kenneth City. And just lest there be any conflict whatsoever in terms of what our responsibilities are here as council persons, our charter says that Mr. Marino serves at the pleasure of council. That's section 4.06. The pleasure of council means that we could make a motion one night, if we got a motion, a second, and a vote, to terminate him because we don't like the color of his tie. It's that simple. We don't have to give reason. But yet, we're going through this. We're going through this exercise to give some reason and to give some perspective. No explanation is necessary. Our strategic plan that was passed and is binding upon all the council members requires that we be a good steward of the city's finances. I want to know what's out there. This isn't about picking the lowest price. We didn't pick the lowest price as a community for garbage services. We actually picked the highest price for garbage services. And you know why? Because we've got waste management, and everybody in this community, or a large percentage of people in the community, agree that waste management does a tremendous job. So we picked the highest price, not the lowest. Contracts should be bid for everything that this council does, and we've said that we're going to already bid the engineering contracts, which are coming up, and then all the other contracts as they come up. We're not going to breach contracts, okay? We have, I used waste management, I don't know what the term is, but I think we have like another year and a half maybe with that. We're not going to bid it now, that would be breach of contract. But when that comes up, you can bet we're going to bid it. Everybody gets bid, including the sheriff gets bid. I've already started to talk to neighboring communities. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to find someone who's going to do the police job as well or for the right price, but it behooves us as council people to look at what's going on in our surrounding communities. And if Clearwater or Indian Rocks or Largo can cover the police in there, then I want competition, because that's the best value for your money, the taxpayers. And I said that long before I was ever mayor. I said that when I was trying to get appointed to the council. We haven't bid this in the 21st century. You've got to go back, excuse me. Thank you. You've got to go back to 1998 to find out when this contract got bid, and I'm not so sure it was even bid at that point, because when I read it, it talks about a relationship that had already formed in the city. So we're going back into the 20th century. Let's get into the 21st century. Now, if you want reasons, let's take a look at reasons. Stay around for the council session that's coming up. I said last time that I've been saying it, that we've had unconstitutional law in the book. And I don't want to sit here and give a roadmap to people to sue us. But I was pressed last time. I was actually challenged last time. So yes, we do have an unconstitutional ordinance. It's your parking ordinance. We have another unconstitutional ordinance. It's your sign ordinance. And there's going to be proposals tonight to change them. I don't necessarily agree with those proposals, and we will discuss that at work session. However, we need to wake up. Supreme Court came out in 2015 on the sign ordinance. That is not proactive ordinance. That is not proactive attorneying. You don't wait till 2019 until you get a new mayor who happens to be an attorney who picks up on this kind of stuff. There are people out there that will sue the city, and it will be a six-figure settlement just to get out of it. So please, be proactive. Don't give me this everything is beautiful mentality. It's not.
I just have to,
Excuse me.
okay, just at the end, there is one thing I'd like to,
You can, and at the time that we come up for council for comments, I will honor the comments. Yes, 3 minutes. The other thing is, I came here and I kept it in my back pocket during the election. I could have used it to score points, and I didn't do it out of deference to this community. But one of the first things that we discussed at the first work session was the non-compliance ADA of our website. There are people going around in the various parts of the various cities and suing cities because their websites are non-ADA compliant. It was a topic of conversation. In fact, Mr. Reeves himself handed out at the end of one of the, I believe it was the February work session, handed out a newspaper article. And I remembered that newspaper article. I found out at Suncoast League of Cities that other cities were being sued. They were pulling down their websites, being proactive. Why weren't we? Why weren't we told by our council? Why did you have to wait for a new mayor to come on to tell you to pull that down? You want to get sued? Ask them across the street. I believe they got sued. Let's talk about his reputation. I speak to the other mayors. I speak to the people in the county. He does not enjoy a stellar reputation. I have been told by some very high-ranking people in the county that they are not impressed with him. You can go back to 2006 and pull up an article in the Bee, and I did it the other week. And it talks about how he interrupts at meetings, tries to take over the meeting, puts his own points in as if he's an elected official. His point, and we just saw it 2 seconds ago, his point is to sit there and answer questions when asked about the law. Any citizen has the right to speak. They have 3 minutes. He's nothing more than another citizen. The city manager has full rights to speak under our charter and our code. The attorney does not. So you don't get to butt in and do an infomercial like what happened last time. And I agree with Vice Mayor Gunn. It was wholly out of order. And I let it go because I wanted you to see what happened. I could have stopped it at the first 30 seconds, but I let it go. It's been going since 2006, and it's unacceptable. What's more unacceptable is, as an attorney, you don't go to the newspaper and plead your case against your client. We are the client, Bel Air Beach. And I reminded Mr. Marino and Ms. Bircher the next day in a 2.5-hour meeting that that is our relationship. You must be very mindful of the lawyer's code of ethics and the rules that govern us as attorneys. You don't get to go out and plead your case in public against your client. Could you imagine? I understand Mr. Marino, and I don't know this for a fact, but I was told this by a very upstanding citizen, has recently sold his house here in Pinellas and is moving to Georgia. Apparently he's 80 years old and perhaps he's getting ready to retire. I'm not quite sure. But Ms. Bircher is his heir apparent and the person that he's suggesting. But we didn't hire Ms. Bircher. We hired Mr. Marino. So it's another reason for us to take a look at what's happening here. We're doing this to make sure that we have the best attorney for our city, okay? I reject sole source contracts, okay? It's not a lifetime appointment, it's not the Supreme Court. We're looking to get the best value for the money, we're looking to get the best attorney for the money. If counsel, as he stated last week, is truly the best person in this county and the state and the world, then he's gonna ace this exam with ease. He's gonna fly right through it and he's gonna get reappointed. But if he's not, And if there is someone else better, and even if it costs this city a couple more dollars, then the council members here will be faced with a choice. Do they want to go with quality, or they want to go with price? As I asked Mr. Marino, who was going to a medical thing last time, I said, Mr. Marino, did you pick the cheapest doctor to do your medical procedure? And he said no. So I don't pick the cheapest attorney, I don't pick the cheapest engineer, I don't pick the cheapest of anything when I'm doing something like this. If I'm buying cement block, I'll pick the cheapest person. But when I'm doing something with professional services, I want the best value for the money. With that said, my recommendation to council, and what I'm going to ask of council, is to vote to put this out to RFQ. As Councilmember Bain just said, we're simply putting this out for a bid. There will be an evaluation process, and at that point is when it's time for the invited people to come back and do their presentation before this community and before this council. That was council's comments. I'm sorry, Jody Shirley came in just recently. We're going for council comments. You didn't have the opportunity on first pass, so do you have any council comments on the first two items?
Well, my position has been with this contract and any other contract that they all should be reviewed. It's not singling out the attorney, it's not singling out any specific engineer or anything like that, but when they're up for renewal, they should be reviewed and put out to bid for many of the reasons that were just mentioned clearly, and no one should have a long-standing contract that is from 1998 without anyone reviewing it. Don't understand how that happens.
At this point now, we're going to open it up to the citizens. However, before we go to citizens, I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves, I consider you as part of council even though you're not elected, so did you have any comments on this at this point?
I just want to, everything in red is what was changed. And, you know, if everybody's happy with what was in red, then I'll convert it back to black, but I want to make sure everyone saw all the changes. So those were the only changes from the last time. And the dates are changing, of course, but they're in red also.
And if you don't mind me adding, I have reviewed those comments. You and I worked very closely with this, and those changes that you made, I think, are true and faithful to what I know came through legal counsel, because they made their comments afterwards, and also comments of Vice Mayor Gunn and myself, and I'm not sure if anyone else commented, but yeah, okay, so I got all the comments, and that we can faithfully reproduce them in red. Right, okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to go to legal counsel. Now, this is about any topic you want. You have 3 minutes, and then we're going to move it to the citizens.
I won't take 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be pretty quick. The first thing I want to be very clear on is I disagree with you on the constitutionality of the parking ordinance. I believe the city's parking ordinance is constitutional under the law review article I forwarded to you. I clearly think the sign ordinance, as most sign ordinance in the countries, are unconstitutional right now under the 2015 decision. Most cities still have not changed their sign ordinance countrywide, despite that, because of the difficulty of figuring out how to comply with the U.S. Supreme Court. The last thing I want to say is I'm not going to try to go back through the history of Paul Marino with this city council, and certainly not Kenneth City. I've known Paul for many years, as most of you have. Many of you know Paul far better than I do. So I'm going to allow you to rely on your own dealings with Paul Marino as an attorney and otherwise. He has been nothing but tremendous to me and a great font of legal knowledge and in the interest of his clients, but I will let him respond for himself when he returns from vacation. And that's really all my comment. Oh, one last thing I would like to say. I acknowledge, and I've had this discussion with one city council member, many of you I respect. You're about process. You are about process and wanting the best for your city. I absolutely get that. I believe there is good process out there. So, at least for myself, I do not take it personally that you have a process that you want to go through looking at what you can do better in the city. And that's all.
Thank you. Does any citizen wish to comment? Please raise your hand, be acknowledged, and please step up here to the podium. I'm seeing one hand. Sir?
John Hanzik, 103 22nd Street. I have to concur with the majority of the comments that have been made here about these contracts. Open-ended contracts not subject to periodic review. It's not good business. And how, and the only one that's been brought before this meeting tonight is the one regarding the legal services for the city. That it has not been reviewed since 1998 is terrible. I mean, I can relate, if you will, to my military service and civilian contracts. They have drop-dead dates. They're not open-ended forever. And I know I'm not the only one in this room that has that experience. The vice mayor does too, in his organization. So all of the contracts should be periodically reviewed. And I agree 100% with the concept of getting the best bang for our buck. It's our money. And that's what you new folks that were elected campaigned on. You were going to do your due diligence to do the best you could. And I'm anxiously awaiting the property appraisers' numbers on home or real estate. Because again, some of you campaigned on working within the assessments and not raising the assessment. I'm going to be watching that very closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Mike Dershowitz, 102 8th Street. 4 years ago, when I moved here, I was warned by a resident about the Good Old Boys Club, that it was impossible to get anything done fairly through City Hall. Having lived here, I have come to agree with that sentiment. Not only that, but the competence of city officials is in question. Take, for instance, the sign that's in the city manager's yard. It's a violation of 8664. Advertising signs, it shall be unlawful for any person to place or exhibit any form of advertisement whatsoever upon any property in the city which is zoned for a single-family residential use. Now, I didn't know everyone was going to talk about this, but the question is, why is the sign there? Is there a breakdown in code enforcement? The bad part is his sign is legal. It's the code that's illegal. The First Amendment says so. To me, that means either our city attorney doesn't know current federal case law or is just not trying very hard to keep us from being sued. A while back, I had a hearing in this very room about my bamboo. For those of you who don't know, bamboo is a grass. So are palm trees. They are not trees. It was our city attorney who wrote the definition for a hedge that appears in our code, which I paraphrase because as of today, the changes to our code that were adopted months ago are still not on the city's website. A hedge is 2 or more bushes or shrubs planted along a property line. Bamboo is neither a bush or a shrub, but in the eyes of the city manager, grass can be a hedge. During that hearing, I had absolutely no perception whatsoever of fairness or impartiality from the special master, Susan Moore, a longtime city employee, who surprisingly found that a hedge is or can be a grass, and the letter of the code can be ignored. That is, if you're a member of the Good Old Boys Club. Council members, you are at a crossroads. You have the opportunity and the authority to break up the Good Old Boys Club and restore some degree of fairness to city government. I just hope you have the intestinal fortitude.
Thank you. Does any other citizen wish to comment? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Becky Burgess, 111 Fifth Street. I do understand as you're talking that if every contract that we have is being reviewed, being sent out for bid, then that does make sense. What I really question though is that I know you have said you want to have communication flow to you from us. So when citizens come up and do that, then please just say thank you and take into consideration what anyone up here is saying that agrees or doesn't agree with what you're thinking. But listen to us. That's all I want.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Seeing no other hands, citizen comments are closed. It now goes back to the council for any further comments or rebuttal. I know Robin Aki, you just came in. We're in consideration. We're on the regular special, we're on the special city council meeting, consideration of items 1 and 2. So this will be the chance to have a second comment. Any comments? The only comment, I'm sorry.
Mayor, you should be only voting on item 1, and then 2 is really a discussion thing. That's the thing you and I talked about, you wanted to clarify with the council.
Item 7 was the one that we missed on the consent agenda? Is that
Yeah.
one? Okay, I remember it, that's fine. Okay, I'm sorry, so let's clarify, we're only working on number 1 right now. The number 2 is more ministerial, and we'll go into that later. Thank you, City Manager. Does anyone else have any comments on council? I do have one, just observation, and it's, I don't typically rebut directly to the citizens, so this is an overall comment, as we've heard it from a council member and from one of the citizens. I chaired the meeting last time, and I remember how it went, and I did not cut off any citizen who was speaking. I let everyone speak. Everyone had their full 3 minutes or more. I, in fact, after the meeting, asked our city manager for some advice in terms of, I said, what would happen if I had 100 people come? And he gave me some tips, which I definitely appreciate. So no citizens were cut off. I cut off Mr. Marino, who had went, somebody told me 20 minutes. It seemed longer to me, but he was up there for a while. And 10 minutes is generally the rule. We don't mind if you exceed it a bit, but really he shouldn't have been speaking at all. It's that simple under the rules of order. So this wasn't the time and place, and I said that, and our newspaper reporter, Mr. Ayers, picked up on that correctly. So that's where we're at. Every citizen was heard last time. It's up to the council members what they did with that information. At this point, then we're going to move on consideration of this motion. And the motion before the council is to authorize, this is number 1, to authorize the city manager to advertise for legal services, specifically the city attorney. That would be the RFQ as amended in the red line. And I've already said that the red line looked good to me. Every council member's had a copy of it, so I didn't hear any amendments. At this point, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Councilmember Beam,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. The motion passes. I think we have 7 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do have 7, so it's 7-0. The motion passes. This matter will be put out for immediate bid. City Manager, do you want to discuss the way that this is going to be bid? I know we've discussed it informally, but do you want to do that now? Or do you want to do that in a work session?
Yeah, I'll just quickly, what'll happen, we'll put an advertisement in the paper, and we'll get that in as soon as we can. And if you, let me just get to that page real quick. What I proposed is that the item will be returned to us by July 2nd. I basically just moved it out 2 weeks. So the first section that you see before section 1, that's the ad that we'll put in the paper. And that'll be advertised and it'll go out from there.
And what newspaper is it going to go in?
It goes in the Tampa Bay Times, Beaches edition for the legal publication, and we'll send it to the Bar Association and things of that nature.
I think we also spoke
And it'll
about,
go on the website.
we also spoke about giving copies directly to certain attorneys, and I recommended Mr. Marino get the first copy. But certainly there's other attorneys, some of whom we've actually worked with when we, in our city in prior business. They enjoy a good reputation, so will we, and how will we give that information to them?
Typically what we do is just like engineering firms that started today, we send an email to them with the RFP attached to it. So if they want to fill it out and return it to us, that's fine, so they can take it or leave it. But we have to advertise in the newspaper, so that's the main avenue, and then it will be on the website. Attorneys, engineers, everybody's watching. I mean, we had people call us today already from the ad on Friday.
We appreciate the Bee's front page headline. I'm sure a lot of attorneys saw that, so. So you'll keep us advised then at the next council meeting as to how you advertised it and what the results were in terms of the emails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all, yes.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
So the engineer has been advertised already?
It was advertised on Friday,
Okay.
and in the newspaper anyway, and it was put on the website today. And of course, we emailed the current engineers and a couple others that have expressed interest in it, and we will send it to others. So, you know, if there's anybody the council wants us to send it to, we'll be glad to do that.
And what's the deadline on that one?
I don't have it in front of me, so
It's
It's-
about a 2-week.
I think it's June 18th.
Okay.
If I remember. No, you usually give them about a month. So I think it's June 18th if I recall. There might be a day off there, but
But you'll keep us posted
Yeah.
on the progress.
yeah, we generally try to keep a list of people that contact us for who's asking for the proposal.
Perfect, thank you.
The RFP for the city attorney is on the website as well?
It will be, it's not yet. You haven't approved it yet.
Okay, good, because I would like to make sure it's out there so that the residents get an opportunity to look at it, to see how it's crafted and what we're looking for. The fairness and the flavor of it.
No, it'll be put up just like anything else.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves, I have 3 attorneys, I'm going to say this in front of the entire city. I've never met these attorneys, I've never spoken to these attorneys, but I've heard of their reputation from other mayors and/or people in the county, and I wish to, I'll give you that, a list of
Yeah,
those
that's fine.
individuals. I believe one of them already works for our city in some limited capacity. So,
Yeah, I mean, I know several of them, we'll
sure
say.
you do. Okay, at this point, if there's no other comments, then I'm going to ask if anyone wants to make a motion to adjourn this.
But
Sorry?
the second item.
Thank you. We're not ready to adjourn this. Last time we were here, we had a, is this on here, Mr. Reeves?
No, the item was, I'll just
Go ahead.
clarify. On the agenda, I was requesting authorization to underground the cable wires going north to between 1st and 12th with Spectrum on the east and west side of the road, okay? In addition to what we're already doing. And I explained that, but I think it was pulled from the consent agenda and moved to the regular agenda, and then you voted on it, approved it, but the mayor was concerned that not everybody understood what it was. This is Gulf Boulevard beautification, and the city of Bel Air Beach got Bel Air Shores money plus our money in that allocation from the county, and we're spending it. So that's what this is for.
And I'll take the blame on this one. I was the one who asked to move it from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. And there was a lot going on last time, and I apologize, that wasn't my best meeting. And I only did 2 meetings, so I guess it's the number 2 of 2. But I missed that one because I had the question, and Mr. Reeves answered my question fully the next day. My question simply was because it's infecting both the east and west side of Gulf Boulevard, one of which is a different town, I said, who's paying for all of this? He correctly explained to me that that was penny for Pinellas money that was pooled together. It's being used in both cities. He's kind of, if you want to call it managing it, but watching out for how it's being spent. That was my only concern, that we weren't paying for another town. Not that we don't like the folks there, but I just want to make sure that we're spending our penny on our side of the street and not someone else's. He certainly answered my question completely. With that said, we did vote on it before that piece of information was out there. I personally don't have any issue with it. I don't know if this is the proper procedure, but if no one has any issues with it, then I think our vote would stand. So does anyone in council have any comments or any issues with the way we did that?
Yeah, you approved it 7-0.
Approved it.
So,
We would have to do, in a work session, we would have to tell you to hold, so, I mean, informally even, but nobody has an issue. So with that being said, we have no issue on it. Please proceed as we did last week, or 2 weeks ago. Okay, now we can adjourn this special session, so do I have a motion?
So,
Second?
second.
All in favor? Aye? Against? Thank you. We are now adjourned. Don't leave this theater.